You may not know all the names of the players we're talking about today, but I can guarantee you that one of them is going to help their whatever team signs them win the World Series this year. Granted, I'm not great at predictions. Welcome to The Dugout. I'm your host, Joseph Silva, and on today's episode, we're looking at 10 intriguing free agents this MLB offseason. We know about the Juan Sotos of the world. We know about the Corbin Burnses of the world. But let's go to some of those under-the-radar names that people aren't really talking about that can be huge pickups for the teams that sign them. But before we get started, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and leave a like. Subscribe to the Run the Play Network. There's going to be a lot of off-season moves this year, and the Dugout's your place for all the coverage as it happens. Now, I'm going to do 5 hitters, 3 starters, 2 relievers as players you need to keep an eye out for that are really underreported and I feel like can really help your team go forward. And we start that list off with Christian Walker. In 2024, he played in 130 games, hit 251 with 26 home runs, 84 RBIs, and an 803 OPS, good for a 121 OPS plus. And I can tell you, as someone who has watched a lot of Christian Walker, I hate this man because he's a Dodger killer and he's so good. He hits the ball incredibly hard, 86th percentile in his hard hit rate. And on top of that, too, it's because he's barreling it up, 90th percentile in his barrel rate. So it's a sustainable approach. On top of that, he's patient, really doesn't chase that much, walks at a pretty high clip, 73rd percent in his walk rate. And, there's a little bit of swing and a miss in his game. He does whiff at a below average rate, but, with the patient approach and all that power, you can take a little bit of a below average whiff rate. And on top of that, first base is not a premium position by any means, but he is one of, if not the best defender at first base and can really help solidify defenses or pitching staffs that rely on ground balls to get outs. And if you're looking at teams he could go to, we saw, not to beat a dead horse here, how bad the Yankees defense was and how bad Rizzo was in the World Series. So New York is a definite fit for him. The Nationals have a young, exciting, up-and-coming core. He can be a great veteran leader like he was in Arizona and shepherd that core going forward. I put the Reds on there because they're in the middle of no man's land. They had one of, if not the worst offensive production from first baseman this year. On top of that, worst defensive first base team in baseball. They can really use some help. And the Diamondbacks, because he is really the heartbeat of that team. Ketel Marte is their best player, but he is the leader of that club. But I think he's going to sign with the Reds. Like I said, poor offensive production from first, struggled mightily defensively all year. He can really help shepherd some of those struggling stars like a Noel V. Marte, a Spencer Steer, an Encarnacion Strand. He really can be a great leader in that clubhouse. Plus, he doesn't have to face my Dodgers that often. And 2, he would go absolutely bananas at Great American Ballpark. After that, I have Ha-Seong Kim. In 2021, he played 121 games, hit 233 with 11 home runs, 47 RBIs, stole 22 bases, had a 700 OPS, good for a 96 OPS plus. It was a down year offensively for Kim, but don't let that fool you. The past 2 seasons, he's been a really solid, dependable bat that you can really slot anywhere in the order except for the 3-4 hole, and he can give you solid production. He has probably the best plate approach of anyone in this class, not named Juan Soto. He doesn't chase. There's no swing and miss, and walks really well because all of those are at least in the 96th or 92nd percentile on Baseball Savant. So he's got tremendous plate discipline and a fantastic approach, which of course ages a lot better than hard-hitting first basemen or people who just rely on their strength to get on base. He's a rangy, versatile defender, and the past 2 years, he's put up positive outs above average at short, second, and third. So he can really slot anywhere in the infield that is needed. And you saw this with the Machado injury early in 2023 as he filled in at third. He filled in at shortstop and really was a primary second baseman in his time in San Diego. So really, he can fit in any number of clubs. But I narrowed it down to, of course, the Padres are the favorites here. Don't really know if they are going to re-sign him because they have a team at shortstop they can plug and play really anywhere. But it's good to see him there. The Mariners can really use someone with, great plate discipline that makes contact and really a great defender with, how Kirby and all their pitchers get a lot of ground balls. But everyone has their theories as to why Safeco Field is the pitcher's paradise it is. And a lot of it comes down to the slanted batter's eye in center field. And you kind of worry how that might affect Kim's plate discipline and how he just tracks the ball. Because a slanted versus straight doesn't seem like that much of a difference. But it really, really does affect hitters because they pick up on the slightest details. And of course, I have the New York Yankees. Again, we saw how defense came back and bit this team. Volpe is a fantastic defender at shortstop, but Torres is not a great defender at second. And then, too, Chisholm is not a natural third baseman by any means. You kind of saw that a little bit at times during the playoff run. Don't let the flashy diving plays fool you. He did have his moments where a lot of natural third basemen make those plays. And that's why I think he is going to be a Yankee. Is you may not get Glaber back this offseason, but, you can move Chisholm back to second base where he came up. You can move him to center field if need be, help improve that defensive outfield a little bit, put Judge back in a corner spot. So he really fits the need of this Yankees team too. And again, he fits the patient plate approach that they have as a team. He really adds length to this lineup. It's going to be a really tough at-bat. And he might benefit a little bit too from the shorter porches both in right and left at Yankee Stadium. I think Kim is going to be a fantastic Yankee. Up next, we got a weird one. I got Yoan Moncada. Yes, I am talking about a 2024 White Sox on this list. But hear me out on this one. He only played 12 games last year. He hit 275, no home runs, no RBIs, 1 stolen base, 756 OPS, 117 OPS. It really does not matter that much because, again, he only played in 12 games. Injuries are a concern. And what you're looking at for Moncada is his sweet spot percentage, like hitting it right in the center of the bat where you need to barrel up the ball. He was 98th percentile in 2023. And, extremely high ex-WOBA con, his weighted on-base average on contact. So he really, when he made contact, he made good contact and was expected to have a lot of great results in 2023. And I get it's 12 games, but he showed signs of an increasingly patient plate approach in 2024. And if you're signing Moncada, you're really betting on the upside and that former number one prospect potential. And the fact that the strides he made in his plate approach in 12 games, a very, very small sample size, can be brought forward and sustained in the long run. He's a very buy low candidate, so don't expect contenders like the Dodgers, Yankees, and Padres to sign him. Don't even expect fringe contenders like the Giants, Reds, and Mariners to sign him. You're looking at like the bottom of the barrel teams, the White Sox, the Marlins. I put the Mariners in there because they need anyone in this lineup who knows how to hit a baseball. But, I picked the Marlins because they don't really necessarily have the best lineup. They have an okay third baseman, but they just need someone they can buy low on a one-year deal. He can really draw fans since he is Cuban. They have a large Cuban population in Miami. It's a great buy low candidate. If he really turns on the juices and hits that potential, you can flip him for prospects and maybe even keep him if you're surprisingly a contender this year. I think Moncada is going to be a fantastic Marlin. And I really just put him here because if he is going to fly under the radar with no matter what team he signs for, but he might be one of those trade deadline chips that everyone looks at like, man, we need to get him on our team next summer. Now, I have Paul Goldschmidt as our next hitter. And 2024 was a big step back from him. He played in 154 games, hit 245 with 22 home runs, 65 RBIs, still stole 11 bases. Don't forget, Goldschmidt is a sneaky good base runner. Had a 716 OPS, good for a 98 OPS plus. And, if you're looking at the good and why you should sign Goldschmidt, is he still barreling the ball up at a fairly high rate, 73rd percentile in baseball, and still really hits the ball hard. He just kind of got unlucky. He is swinging and missing a lot. Really took huge steps back since that MVP season in 2022. The defense is fine. He's not that premier defender he was 10 years ago. Again, is a good base runner. But you're really betting on the fact that a change of scenery, a little bit more of a hitter-friendly ballpark can really help him out here. So, if you're looking at potential fits, the Yankees again need a first baseman in the worst possible ways. A reunion with the Diamondbacks would be very heartwarming, but would torture me because I hated that man in the Diamondbacks uniform. And the Nationals, again, need veteran leadership. That's why I think he's going to sign with the Nationals, is he can help shepherd along the young core like Christian Walker is going to do in Cincinnati. And on top of that, too, Nationals Park is a bit more hitter-friendly than Busch Stadium, as he was expected to hit 26 home runs if he played there, as opposed to the 22 he hit in real life. I think this is going to be like the last great hurrah from him. I think people expect him to ring chase. I think he should just help an up-and-coming team. And who knows, maybe the numbers improve and then he can go ring chase next year. And finally, I'm going to slip him in here. There are arguments of him being a top 10 free agent, but there's one thing that kind of holds him back, and we'll talk about that for a second. Our last hitter we're talking about is Teoscar Hernandez, my beloved. In 2024 was a career year for him. He played in 154 games, hit 272 with 33 home runs, 99 RBIs, good for an 840 OPS and a 137 OPS plus. And the thing with him is he demolishes the baseball. Hits it hard, hits it far, barrels it up, whatever you want to say. The ball off his bat is a thing of beauty. However, he swings and misses a lot. And I mean a lot. 7% whiff rate with poor defense. The reason why he's not a top 10 free agent and one of those big names everyone's chasing after is because he is going to fall off a cliff hard. Players like him tend to age very, very poorly. But, you're betting on the 1, maybe 2 good years you get out of him before you get an absolutely disastrous Javier Baez type season out of him. But, he's extremely, extremely clutch. Because if you're going by WPA win probability added, the 5th, 4th, and 3rd most impactful hits of the Dodgers playoff run were all Teoscar Hernandez. And it's not like he's a free swinger by any means. He is still somewhat patient at the plate. And I know it gets lost in that chaotic 5th inning in Game 5 because, quite frankly, a lot of shit happened in that inning. But the big thing for me, and I think the most underrated moment of that inning, is 0-2 Garrett Cole throws a cutter low and in, trying to get that swing and miss. And Hernandez went, and he bit on it a little bit, but he held his swing, didn't swing at it, got the count 1-2. Next pitch, hit it off the wall to tie the game. So, he can step up in the big moments. He isn't going to chase as freely as you think with someone with his profile. So he can be someone that is going to be a great add to a contender. So, if you're looking at him, you got the Dodgers. Obviously, the Braves really need some outfield help because you don't know what Acuna is going to be like, and you just traded away Soler. That's the next team. The Red Sox really need outfield help as well. They need to build up that lineup behind Jarren Duran. But come on. He's got to be a Dodger. I have not seen someone so beloved in the left field pavilion since like Manny Ramirez. And on top of that, if you put the fan feeling aside, he really does help this team out because you talk about the big 3 being really good. We kind of need a cleanup hitter. And I love Will Smith, but he disappears in the second half for like the past 2 seasons. So he's not going to be someone you can rely on to protect Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. Hernandez is. He's done it. He did it very well. Bring him back to Dodger Stadium. Now, before we talk about intriguing pitchers, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
We want to give a huge shout out to Boom Fantasy for sponsoring this episode. Boom Fantasy is a betting app like something you have never seen before. Their pick and spin feature allows you to cash out up to 500 times your money on a 2-leg parlay. If that's not your style, they have a traditional pick'em as well. You can play with different stat odds and different payout odds that'll shift accordingly. Sign up with Boom with the link in the description or use code RTP when signing up for a risk-free $250 bet. Simple, fun, daily fantasy sports. Gamble responsibly.
Now, in terms of pitchers, again, we got to talk about Roki Sasaki. Let's just get it out of the way here. In the NPB last year, he started 18 games, 111 innings pitched, 2.35 ERA, 1.04 whip, 10.5 Ks per 9, 2.6 walks per 9, and 0.2 home runs per 9. What do you want me to say about Sasaki, man? He is absolutely filthy. Averages 98 on the fastball. It's been clocked as high as 102. Unbelievable splitter. It might be better than Yamamoto's splitter when he came over, and everyone was raving about Yamamoto's splitter because that Sasaki splitter in the MPB, 57.1% whiff rate, which would have been the highest in Major League Baseball by a country mile. And on top of that, too, he's got a plus slider, which also has a 48.6% whiff rate. We know about the perfect game, and then after that, he took a perfect game again into the 8th inning. He is phenomenal. If you watch the WBC, especially that start against Mexico, his stuff plays. But his whiff rate on his fastball nearly fell by half from 2023 to 2024. 24% in 2023 to 13.1 in 2024. As Paul Skeens showed, you don't need fastball with high spin rate and great shape and IVB in the 98th percentile. Now, sometimes if you just throw the ball hard, they're not going to hit it. It is still a little concerning for me. You're not relying on it to be a swing and miss pitch by any means. That's what the splitter and slider are for. But if people aren't, swinging and missing, even at like the 23 or at the 24% rate, that's fine. But 13.1 is a little concerning for me. That's the only red flag I have about Sasaki. I think he'll develop just fine. Now, everyone talks about the Dodgers obviously being the big fit because you have Ohtani, you have Yamamoto. We're building a great Japanese fan base and culture out here in LA. But he's been on record saying he wants to go to the place that's best for him to help him develop. He's even looking at small market teams with great pitching development. So I don't think the Guardians necessarily are going to be one of those teams that can sign him, but that's a team to look out for. The Padres, the Yu Darvish connection's a team to look out for. And call me a little crazy here. I think he's going to be a Seattle Mariner. Money is no constraint because he's going to be a 2025 international free agent. So you're really pulling from the international bonus pool. Jerry DiPoto is weird when it comes to how he trades players willy-nilly. I think it's a great spot for him to go be out of the national spotlight, develop, hone his craft. The Mariners home grew Kirby, Wu, Gilbert. A lot of that rotation is homegrown. The only one they really added from free agency or whatnot is Castillo, and I think he's probably the odd man out here if they decide to get rid of anyone from that rotation. And on top of that, Ichiro was a Met. It's very sentimental to be a Seattle Mariner if you're Japanese. Do not be surprised if Roki Sasaki does not sign with the Dodgers. I think he's going to be a Mariner, and it's going to be what's best for him long term. Now, we have another interesting guy here, and that's 2020 Cy Young winner Shane Bieber. He's coming off Tommy John surgery, and he's really fallen off hard since that Cy Young season. His last full season was 2023, and in that he started 21 games, threw 128 innings with a 3.80 ERA, good for a 1.12 ERA plus, 1.23 WHIP, 7.5 Ks per 9, 2.4 walks per 9, and exactly 1 home run per 9 innings, good for a 3.78 FIP. And let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. Shane Bieber may be a sticky stuff merchant because he was one of those whose spin rate fell down tremendously after the ban, was not the same pitcher after the sticky stuff ban, and the fastball velocity, again, has been down every year since his Cy Young season in 2020, and coincidentally, the whiff rate and the K rate are down over the same period as well. And, the sticky stuff really does not just manifest itself in the fastball, but curveball RPM goes way, way up if you're using some kind of illicit foreign substance. So coincidentally, it's been less effective over that time period as well. But the slider is a really good pitch. He upped its usage to really make up for it. And his great 2022 season had a run value of 12. So you're really betting on that high upside with Bieber. You're hoping you can unlock that 2020 form somewhere. Even his 2022 season was great. He was part of that fantastic Cleveland pitching staff. Him and McKenzie really carried the load and really pushed a good Yankees team to the brink in that division series. So if you're looking at teams that can sign him, the Guardians know what's going on with him. They're a great pitching team. Don't be surprised if he stays there. The Reds can use a little bit of depth in that rotation. The Braves had a lot of success with Chris Sale, who just won the National League Cy Young. Would they be willing to take a risk on an injury-prone pitcher and see if it pays off twice? I would not be surprised, especially if Max Fried leaves. But I think he's going to be a Met because they had a lot of success rehabbing Quintana and Manaea from being okay starters to being really good starters who they could depend on. Manaea was unhittable almost in the playoffs. I think Bieber, is going to take a little time to come back from Tommy John surgery. He doesn't have the pressure of being that guy. I think the Mets have something in reclaiming old pitchers with a lot of potential. He'll be a great New York Met. Now we got Walker Buehler up next here. And if you just look at his 2024 stats, I'll be the first to tell you, he was not good. If you watch a lot of this show, I did not have a lot of faith in this Dodgers team at all in the playoffs. I predicted them to lose to San Diego, to lose to the Yankees in the World Series. A lot of it was because of how Buehler was pitching. In 2024, he started 16 games through 75 innings with a 5.38 ERA, good for a 72 ERA plus, a 1.55 whip, 7.6 Ks per nine, 3.3 walks per nine, 1.9 home runs per nine, good for a 5.54 FIP. Oh my God, is all of that horrendous. But he showed something in the playoffs. Vintage Walker Buehler came back because, and I hate the caveat of if you remove this but from that disaster of a second inning in San Diego on, he did not give up a single run in the playoffs after that. In his playoff starts, he threw 15 innings, 3.60 ERA, 1.13 whip, 13 strikeouts, closed out the World Series on 2 days rest, and I think he's starting to figure it out a little bit. The confidence is back. You hear it in all the stories that have come out about that Game 5 and him saying, "Hey, Doc, I'm ready if you need me." The fact that he got his ass up and just went to the bullpen. Pryor didn't tell him to go there. Roberts didn't tell him to go there. That was all Walker. And the thing about Walker Buehler when he's on is he's a confident pitcher. He'll challenge you with that fastball up, curveball down. And what I noticed a lot was he was lacking confidence with 2 strikes a lot this year. He could not put pitchers away or batters away with anything. With 2 strikes, he nibbled, got into a lot of full count, wasted pitches. But that changed in the playoffs in a big, big way. The confidence is back. And on top of that, too, you got to remember he was still coming off Tommy John surgery. He was rehabbing. He's just very interesting because the regular season numbers were horrible. But you're really betting on what he showed in the playoffs. He's not going to get a lot of years, but I think a 1-year deal is what is expected from him. And if you're looking for teams, again, I think the Dodgers would love to have him back. He is a legend now for everything he did for us in this playoff run and playoff runs previously. Again, the Braves are looking for a buy low 1-year starter. I think he fits really good in that rotation. Mets, again, have a lot of success rehabbing pitchers. And I might be biased, but he's going to be a Dodger. He has to be. There was a lot of stuff going on with him in the Dodgers, but I think that playoff run fixed everything. A 1-year prove-it deal with especially a lot of the arms coming off Tommy John surgery like Sheehan, May, and Gonsolin. I think he can eat a good chunk of innings here and maybe earn himself a big boy contract next offseason. Now, for the 2 relievers we're talking about here, first, we're talking about Jeff Hoffman, who was absolutely phenomenal with the Phillies last year. In 68 games, he threw 66 in the 3rd innings with a 2.17 ERA, good for a 1.88 ERA plus, a whip under 1, 12.1 strikeouts per 9, 2.2 walks per 9, under a home run per 9, and a 152 whip. Overall, he's a fantastic reliever, but with the success of Ronaldo Lopez and 4 starts of Jordan Hicks, teams are looking at him to become a starter. And, he's a huge swing and miss guy, but he doesn't get a lot of ground balls. The stuff more plays as a reliever, so I don't see him as a starter because aside from Blake Snell, you don't see starters that just strike out a lot of dudes, don't get a lot of ground balls, and don't really go deep into games. But if you're going to make him a starter, fuck it, make him a starter. I don't care. So if you're looking at that, you got to look at deep, cavernous ballparks because he has an average fly ball rate. And if you're not really putting the ball on the ground, You don't need to be in teeny tiny ballparks like Yankee Stadium, like Great American Ballpark. So, the Giants could be an interesting fit for him because they know what worked about the Jordan Hicks experience and what didn't. He can be a great reliever in the bullpen if it doesn't work out, but you never know. Angels, because they always do something stupid, and I feel like making him a starter is the quintessential stupid Angels move. Braves, again, can use a little bit of bullpen help, can use rotation help. He fits either way in Atlanta, so if the experiment goes wrong, it's not necessarily the end of the world. And then the Padres, same thing, is he could just start for a year while Musgrove comes back from Tommy John surgery, or they can slot him in the bullpen if it's not working out. That's really what you're looking for as a team, is an open rotation spot. If it doesn't work out, you can put him in the bullpen. But I think he's going to be a Brave. They really, really need arms in that rotation here. You saw the fact that they started a man who only had one major league start in game one of the wild card series against the Padres last season. Yeah, they need arms in the worst possible way. I hate to say it, it was a phenomenal story this year about Chris Sale, but you can't really rely on a full healthy season from him, especially given his track record over the last 5 years. So they need arms, and if it doesn't work out, again, he'd be a great fit in the bullpen. The bullpen struggled a little bit, could really use an arm like Hoffman in there. And last but certainly not least, Paul Sewald time. He was not great in Arizona, to say the least. In his 42 games, he threw 39 and a third innings with a 4.13 ERA, good for a 93 ERA plus, 1.13 WHIP, 9.8 strikeouts per nine, 2.3 walks per nine, 1.4 home runs per nine, good for a 395 FIP. And the big reason as to why he lost the closer's role this year is he was getting hit hard. Just absolutely barreled up back to before, the meme of it's Paul Sewald time from his time in Seattle. And it really was because he was throwing more pitches in the zone and hitters were making a lot more contact on said pitches in the zone. Really needs to, mix up his locations, mix up his pitch sequencing a little bit. But it's not unfixable by any means. I think he's a great low reliever with a lot of potential high upside here. So if you're looking at that, Padres can use a little bit of bullpen depth since they lost Tanner Scott. Yankees can use some bullpen depth, as we saw in the World Series. Phillies can use some bullpen depth because, again, I don't really like Matt Strom closing for this team. And Jordan Romano did not have a good season in Toronto, so he can fit there as well. But I think the Padres is where he's going to ultimately end up signing. Petco's a little bit more friendly of a hitter's or a pitcher's ballpark. Really contained some of those fly balls he gave up last year. And two, the Padres just love them a good bullpen. I think he can fit into that Tanner Scott role. Yeah, he's not an Ohtani killer, but I think he can eat low to medium leverage innings very well for this Padres team. And I think he would fit kind of perfectly in that bullpen. I think he's going to be a great Padre. But let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to be a Padre? Are there any intriguing free agents I missed? I'd love to hear from you guys. As always, if you enjoyed the content, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the Run the Play Network, and don't forget on the way out, play ball.